So this video is a Q&A about filter presses, specifically a product that will help you remove your solvent from biomass when you're doing solvent-based extraction like ethanol or something like that. And so we have a Q&A on our website, www.sambocreek.com, and you're going to find that we have prices and things, a little bit more details on the equipment that we sell, but here we're talking about a specific type of filter press and how it's applicable. Generally, this is for solvent-based recovery. So when you're taking your hemp or whatever and you wash it with a solvent, usually you are going to have a significant amount of solvent attached to your plant, and then you can remove that solvent from your biomass by either a centrifugal separator, basically a washing machine that spins very fast, and so through gravitational forces the solvent falls off your biomass. You could also squeeze the ethanol out, but at least for us, we think that a filter press is a easy to operate, cost-effective, automated solution for this type of process. And so this Q&A is just a compilation of some of the questions that we've had over the past few months about these filter presses that we sell. So here we go. So how exactly does this work? So biomass is pumped directly from your extraction vessel into a closed system that filters out solids. After all the solids are filtered out, two inflatable bags squeeze out all solvent from the biomass. After that, compressed air is used to further dry the biomass and clear all solvent from the pipes. What is left is filtered solvent ready to go to the rotor bag or falling film or rising film evaporator, and then your cake is dry. So what I'm saying here is that you have biomass in a tank that's in solvent, and this needs to be a slurry, not whole plant or large flowers in your tank. It needs to be a pulp, needs to be under agitation. So basically, after you're done with your extract, it should flow from the tank into the pump, and the pump pushes it into a press, and the press does all of the work. There's no manual feeding or anything like that. And the press will remove the solvent from the biomass, and it will filter all of the particulate out of the solvent. So the solvent is filtered and it's ready to go into your rotary evaporator or a falling film, rising film evaporator, whatever it is that your downstream process requires. Do I put brew bags with my plant material into the press? Yeah, I get this a lot. So I guess typically what people are doing on a medium and small scales is that they will take their biomass, put it into a brewery bag, and then put that brewery bag into an extraction vessel, just a tank with solvent, or they may even pour solvent over these bags. And so then you take these bags and then you squeeze them somehow to get the solvent out. One of the things that the main thing I don't like about that is it's really labor intensive. You literally have to be dealing with all these bags. Which if you're a small processor, it's not a big deal, but if you get huge, there's a lot of labor involved. And also there's a time problem here where if you're doing a cold solvent extraction, by the time you actually get around to squeezing these bags, your solvent is probably warmed up significantly, and it'll start to remove chlorophyll from your biomass. And so when you squeeze these things, maybe your primary extract was a nice golden color, but then the juice, if you will, that comes out of these bags tends to be green. Does this system work with cold ethanol? Yep, these presses are capable of working with cold ethanol solutions and most organic solvents. There is a theoretical limit of minus 40 C because the pumps are rated up to a negative 40 Celsius. So you can do a colder extraction, but again, we don't recommend it. We really think that you should stick to -40 or somewhere around those lines. It seems that -67 Celsius is the key temperature to prevent chlorophyll from dissolving into the solvent. So we're not quite there yet. We can take a look at some pumps and you know to see if with these systems it could be possible, but right now it just hasn't been an issue. Most extractors are around those temperatures, so for now, -40 C, if you're okay with that, this is a system for you. If you're not okay with -40 C, this is not the system for you. What solvents can I use with this system? Yeah, most people use ethanol, but yeah, methanol and isopropanol are fine. Acetone is fine. Really, the only thing you can't use is pentane, and that's because the plates are made of polypropylene, and pentane does not work well. The compatibility chart of pentane and polypropylene is not good, so you can damage your equipment. What pump do I use to move my biomass from my tank to the filter? Yeah, so we supply you with a pump, and we like diaphragm pumps because they're really easy to operate. They're safe, explosion proof, very powerful, inexpensive to maintain, and have inexpensive replacement parts, and they're fast to maintain. So if there were to be a problem, it's an inexpensive and easy fix, and they're capable of handling extreme pressures and quite cold temperatures. How long does a press take to dry my product? Okay, so typically a batch is going to take somewhere around an hour or two, and that really depends on you. Um, if you have a smaller press, it'll come with a small pump. If you have a large press, it'll come with a larger pump. So in the end, the cycle times really tend to be the same, an hour or two. So on a smaller press that, let's say you did 50 pounds, it has a small pump. A larger press that you might be able to do 500 pounds into that press, it'll still take the same time, but even though it's larger, it also has larger pumps. So in the end, your cycle times are the same. And so the cycle time will include me closing the press, pumping things into it, squeezing my biomass after I'm done pumping, um, blowing air through it. Some users even like to rinse that biomass cake with just cold, clean solvent to, kick off some of the residual solvent that may be there with active ingredients. And in the end, you can blow dry it with air. You just pump compressed air through the membranes, and it cleans off the pipes and it cleans off everything off of these presses. And so you end up with a very dry cake. And most of the solvent loss at this point um, comes from the actual cells absorbing the solvent. So there's not much you can do about that unless you did some kind of vacuum drying or things of that nature. How many employees does it take to operate this system? Honestly, I would say one, because you have a controller. Some of these machines can be manual, but we usually sell them with PLC controllers. Um, from the tank to the press, it's you don't touch anything. I mean, it's all pumped in, so it's not difficult for an operator to do this. You push a button to get the pumping going and things of that nature, and then opening the press, closing the press is just done by pushing a button. And cleaning the press, usually we do have automated options, but cleaning the press usually it involves just opening the plates, which can be done by one person. And for this application specifically, the biomass just will fall out of the plates by itself. There is very little cleaning that actually needs to be done. You don't really touch the press. You just open the plates and everything falls off by itself. So it's really simple cleanup process. So yeah, one employee can really handle this operation. How difficult is it to operate this press? It's pretty straightforward. Once the machine is installed and commissioned correctly, the training might be an hour or two just to do one or maybe two cycles, and you really get the feel for it. So it really is One of the reasons we feel that this technology is so successful is because of its simplicity, the safety, and the efficiency of it. And so there's better machines for this process, absolutely, but they're expensive, difficult to operate. It needs a certain level of expertise and a certain level of maintenance that needs to be performed. So if you're not comfortable with such a technological system, so complicated system, this is really the way to go because you can learn how to use it successfully quite quickly. Can you send over some help to install? Yeah, absolutely. We do service, installation, and training. Um, you need to have a licensed, bonded contractor, electrician, plumber, whatever for the installation. But we'll send you a guy over if you want. That'll help you install this. Tell your guys what things go where, and then at the same time afterwards do training. But these aren't things that you can demo or you can move around your lab. Usually they're bolted to the ground. These ship in a flatbed truck. They may weigh multiple tons, so it's not something that gets to be moved around. You install it somewhere and it stays there forever, pretty much. How dry can this machine make the biomass? Well, I mean, it depends, right? I mean, is your biomass already, is it moist? Is it a live biomass that contains whatever 50, 60, 70% water, or did you dry it, right? So that'll depend. If you're already starting with a biomass that is high in moisture, then of course you have to take that into account. But the extra moisture that actually stays on the outside, um, it'll vary considerably, but we really haven't found something that can remove more moisture than this at this price point and ease of use. So again, the moisture loss, if you use a centrifugal, a normal centrifugal separator that might operate at 1200 RPM or something like that, they will usually contain more moisture than a press. So remember that not only do you squeeze it, but you also blow compressed air through it, and all of those things make a huge impact. I have a centrifugal dryer. How does this compare? Um, for one, there's a lot less manipulation. It's a completely automated system. For the small centrifugal dryers, um, you feed them and you empty them, which can be either very complicated or not so complicated, but just paying an employee to be loading and offloading these things, when you're at a large scale, that may be significant. So that's one of the main benefits of this system. It's just the labor savings aside from the solvent savings. So the centrifugal dryer does a fantastic job, but the press will do a little bit better job with the added labor savings. So it's faster. The filter press is faster. I've had this a lot where somebody will say, well, my little centrifugal dryer can do 10 pounds in 15 minutes. So how can a press be faster? Well, we have a 150 pound 5 cubic foot uh, press that may take 2 hours at a batch time. So in those 2 hours, it's very challenging for you to dry that amount of pounds in that amount of time with a small centrifugal dryer. So yeah, that's what we mean. Maybe in 5 minutes, if we just did 5 minutes, we wouldn't compare. But in the long run, yeah, the press will outperform. Um, how is this machine better than a Delta Separation COP15? Which is kind of what the previous question was referring to. Look, it isn't. The COP15 by Delta Separations is a wonderful machine, but it's a different machine. The Delta Separations is an all-in-one machine. It extracts and it has a centrifugal dryer. So it's a different machine. This is not a competing product. A filter press is not a primary extraction vessel. The Delta Separation extracts. Um, you can wash in this machine and you can extract the solvent from your biomass. So they're very different machines, right? So there really isn't, much of a comparison. And also I'm not well versed on the Delta. I know it's a wonderful machine, but I think that the hopper holds, I think, 10 pounds, while our press arguably fits somewhere between 150 to 200 pounds. So again, they're just different machines. We can't compare apples and pears. Um, a customer asks, I need to process 100 tons a day. Can you accommodate me? Absolutely. Yeah, so we usually start at around a 5 cubic foot press, which, depending on how tightly you pack in your biomass in there, you can go about 150 to 200 pounds. And then we go all the way up to 600 cubic feet. So we can accommodate pretty much any size operation. And we do manufacture custom presses if you were to need something larger than 600 cubic feet, but I haven't seen that yet. And that's per cycle, right? 600 cubic feet is not per day, that's in one shot. So you're going to be doing, you could work 24 hours, 2 shifts, or so. Yeah, to get at that size, I don't think that's an issue. Um, can I put whole plant into the system? No, no, that doesn't work. That won't pump. That really won't pump. You need to remove the stalk, like by debucking it. If you're using a combine, um, that helps. If not, you need to debuck it. There's a whole bunch of small machines that debuck for you. We also recommend grinding. Why do you grind? Because grinding increases the surface area and there's better extraction. I'm not saying you need to pulverize. I know a lot of people don't like to pulverize because you're pulling extra things out of the plant that you don't want to, but generally if you debuck and you grind in some kind of mill, hammer mill or something like that with a relatively small screen, you'll find that you get a homogenized small size grind that you can make a pulp, because in the end you need to pump this and you cannot pump branches and leaves and that kind of stuff. You can pump leaves, but if it's too big, it makes pumping difficult. So in general, it's just a good idea to grind. And for that matter, it's also a good idea to agitate, because if you're extracting, agitation just creates the kinetics that makes the solvent come into contact with the parts of the plant that you want dissolved. So if there isn't proper agitation, you're not going to have absolute extraction. So look, debucking is a good idea just because you're getting rid of a lot of things that have commercial value but don't need to be um, subjected to a solvent. There's no benefit in it. And then you'll save on equipment, you'll save on solvent, you'll save on grinding by removing that fiber. Um, and then you will create a slurry with proper agitation, which will make it easier to pump, and you're going to have less stuff to pump around by properly doing this. So debugging is already a great idea. Grinding is a great idea. Agitation is a great idea. So it's all going to help. The pumps themselves are powerful pumps. We have pumps that could pump 1 inch solids. And the percentage of solids in your solution, depending on your application, some of these things can actually pump 60% solids. So that's more of a paste, right, than a slurry. So sometimes the biggest issue is getting the solids out of the tank than into the pump. But what filter media is used? Filter paper? No, these presses don't use paper. They use cloth. The cloth lasts months. It's not cheap, but it's not exactly expensive. You're not going to spend thousands of dollars swapping out your cloth, and it's going to last you 6 months, maybe a year. Depends on how much use you give it and how much care you give it. But it's strong polypropylene cloth. It lasts quite a while. And it takes a while to change out, right? I mean, it's a few hours to do a complete press cloth change. So this is not something that you're going to be changing every batch, just because of the expense and the time that it takes to swap them out. So yeah, keep that in mind. Do you use filter aid with biomass? Honestly, you can. You can do a little pre-coat and put a little bit of filter aid, perlite, diatomaceous earth, or something like that before you start pumping in biomass. If you really want to do a clean cut, yes, you can use it, but in general, it's not necessary. Remember, it's the filter cake itself that does the filtration, so the plant particles are the ones that are going to filter out the other plant particles. So yeah, for this application, filter aid is not necessary. Of course, it can be used. It'd probably help get a cleaner filtrate, but it's really not necessary. So how does your equipment compare to competitors? You know, on a pound per pound basis, the smallest machine, it's actually more like $300 a pound because a $50,000 machine can do 150 pounds. So 50,000 divided by 150, that's a 333 bucks a pound. And then when you scale up, we actually go down to 100 something dollars a pound. So a 500-pound machine isn't 400, it's like $100 a pound. So yeah, they're very cost effective for sure. Can you use this press to de-wax? Yes, you can, but you know, honestly, I wouldn't, because it's a $50,000 machine. You know, we have de-waxing presses that aren't as sophisticated, and they're something like, they start at $13,000. So yes, you can, but there's cheaper options. And I wanted to run a simple YouTube video on what I'm referring to on a press. So this is a massive press. It has feet on two sides, but you can get automatic options for your press to close automatically. See how it's closing automatically? This is, you know, very standard on our systems. It's not an issue. So you pump your slurry. This is pumping in. It's called a center feed press, where it's pumping in from the center. Because this one's very large, it's also pumping from the back, but ours just pump like so. And so this is your filter cake, your biomass, filling up the plates, and they all filter at the same time. And as it's filtering, off the side of the plate, there's a little tube that your solution is coming out of. So your solvent comes out of these little tubes. And here's the magic. Here's the magic. Okay, so this black stuff here is the cavity in between the plates. This has a filter cloth that helps the solvent runs through the cloth and the cake stays behind. After you're done filtering and there's no more solvent, you bleed out some of the pipes to get some of the solvent out. And inside these plates, this has a bag inside. It's a plastic bag, a very powerful plastic bag. And you push a button and this bag inflates. And so the cake that is building up right here gets squeezed from this side and from the other side. So it's being squeezed from both sides at tremendous pressures. This might squeeze at 100 pounds per square inch. And so there's tremendous pressure going onto this cake, and it's removing all of the excess solvent that's already there. And because these plates are made of polypropylene, they're very strong and they are thermal insulators. And so your biomass, if you are doing a cold extraction, your biomass stays cold. So you're not going to have chlorophylls leaching out or not significantly, right, if your solution and your biomass is still cold. So they're wonderful for maintaining that temperature, and so it'll squeeze out, and what it squeezes out is not going to be chlorophyll, it's going to be just your regular solution, your regular extract, right? It's going to be a high quality extract doing, you know, like I said, 200 pounds for our smallest unit. And let's continue. Yeah, you squeeze and more juice comes out, more solvent comes out. And I think here they're running compressed air through it. Yeah. Air, you see air is forced through the cake. You force air through it and air comes into your filter cake. Yep, and then more compressed air will remove anything from your pipes. And you push another button and it opens. And this machine has this automatic plate shifter, that's what that's called, and it'll open the plate for you. And if you see, as it opens for you, usually if you have a good cake, it'll just fall out automatically. It's that simple. And we have all of these automatic options: PLC controllers, automatic opening, closing, automatic washing, all kinds of features for every budget. So yeah, that is the filter press. And if you have any questions, feel free to visit sambocreek.com. We are on Instagram. We have a YouTube channel, which is what you're listening to now, but we have an Instagram, a Facebook, and our website, and you can check out all our filter presses. This is what we're talking about here: dryer filter press. You can't order online, but this is the small 5 cubic foot press that we sell. And we have a little Q&A, a little basic description here, but it's base price